The story you are about to see is entirely real. Additional material has been used to ensure a visual representation and understanding of the events. 100 years ago, over 200,000 lions ruled the African plains. Today, fewer than 23,000 remain. Habitat loss, hunting, and human greed have reduced their domains to a few wild refugees. This story is a tribute to the last territories where lions still walk, and a reminder of how much we've already lost. There are no results without sacrifice, and in Africa, sacrifice is always flesh and blood. Limitations do not exist. Not here, not for beasts like him. This is not an ordinary lion. This is Chongo, a mountain of muscle and scars. A one-eyed warrior who still sees more than most. Because he doesn't see with his eyes, he sees with instinct. They say blood doesn't lie, and the one that runs through his veins is the blood of monsters, the blood of kings. He leads a coalition that once was 6. Today, 4 remain, but each one is a death sentence. Chongo doesn't need to roar to command respect. It's enough to see him walk. It's enough to hear the silence he leaves behind when he appears. Intelligent, relentless, brutal. We don't know if he's the strongest, but if he's not, then the strongest should start to worry. This is a lion made for war. The strongest lion in Africa, Chongo. The story you're about to hear takes place in one of the most famous places on the African continent, the Masai Mara National Reserve in southwestern Kenya. Connected to the Serengeti in Tanzania, this ecosystem is home to one of the largest concentrations of wildlife on the planet. It's an open, fertile, ever-changing land where thousands of ungulates migrate every year, attracting predators of all kinds. In this abundant environment, where food is never scarce and competition is constant, lions tend to mature faster than in other African regions. This is due, in part, to the dominant genetics of the local populations, and also to the continuous availability of prey, which allows young males to grow strong in a short time and face challenges at an early age. It was here where, in 2014, Chongo and his brothers were born, in the Monaco Pride. Their parents were not just anyone. Lolparpit and Olbanoti, 2 legendary lions of the Mara, known for having held a territory for years with a solid alliance and a well-earned reputation. From a young age, the 6 cubs were surrounded by the natural tension of the system. And although their lineage was strong, their beginning as a coalition was a bit uncertain. At just 3 years old, they began to establish their domain, a young age to take control of a territory. But in the Masai Mara, where the pace of life is faster, that is not so unusual. The pressure to survive and reproduce pushes the young to mature early. And in the case of the Bila Shaka, that process was quick and effective. In their early days, the coalition of Chongo and his brothers was not known as the Bila Shaka Coalition, but as the SixPack. After taking over the Marsh Pride at just over 3 years of age, they received the name Bila Shaka Coalition. The 6 young males began to make their presence known in the Mara landscape. And although the first months were unstable, their numbers and determination began to generate respect. Over time, they went from being just a promise to becoming a dominant coalition. They faced multiple conflicts, as often happens in these lands. Although they were strong, they avoided physical damage when they could. Their strategy was more calculated, to protect what was theirs, but without risking unnecessary lives. However, these kinds of decisions also carry risks. One of the most significant encounters was with a young emerging coalition. The Salas, three males who were looking to establish themselves and gain ground. During a first clash, the Bila Shaka were not all present, and they decided not to escalate the conflict. Sometime later, the Salas directly attacked Lol Parpit, the father of the Bila Shaka. It was a direct blow to pride and lineage. In the following year, the inevitable happened. The three Salas managed to catch one of the six brothers. It was Baba Yao, a strong male that many considered one of the leaders of the coalition. The fight was violent. Baba Yao was never seen again. It is assumed he died from the wounds of the battle. Baba Yao defended himself well. Possibly the two Salas couldn't have killed him, but when the third male arrived, the difference was clear. Due to platform policies, we cannot show graphic content of this type. And although these events are natural within lion behavior, we prefer to avoid any restriction that may limit the spread of the story. Instead, we choose to tell the facts accurately without the need for explicit images. From that day, the coalition went from 6 to 5. And with the loss of one of its most relevant members, many questions began to arise. Who really led the coalition? Some said Baba Yao and Dongo carried the weight of the group, along with Chongo. But not all brothers lived in the same way. Doa, for example, preferred to spend more time with his group of females than with his brothers. He remained in the territory, but didn't always participate in the same activities as the others. That distance had consequences. On one occasion, Doa found himself alone in front of a formidable opponent, Jesse, an experienced nomadic lion, respected for his strength and for having survived alone for years. The clash between them was not a coincidence. It was a matter of territory, of hierarchy, and of pride. Doa had to face him without reinforcements, and in the Masai Mara, being alone rarely works in your favor. Doa came face to face with Jesse, a nomadic male who had earned a reputation in the area for his strength and resilience. He was one of those lions that survive on the margins, without a coalition, without a pride, but with unbreakable will. The confrontation didn't happen just once. There were 2 encounters in total. And to this day, it's not clear who the real winner was. Some observers believe Jesse wasn't seeking a territorial conflict, nor trying to take control from Doa. Maybe he was just after a chance to feed, or even tried to make an approach for alliance purposes. But in the world of male lions, misunderstandings are resolved with fangs. The consequence was clear. Doa ended up with multiple visible wounds, especially on his face, marks he would carry for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, Jesse showed only a minor wound on his tail before disappearing from the territory. It was a brief clash, but enough to leave a mark. For Doa, that was a warning sign. Being away from his brothers could be costly. And in a territory like this, any weakness, however small, can attract competition. The Bila Shaka coalition was still standing. But glory days don't last forever, and new threats were lurking. Over time, Doa began to drift away from his core. He left behind the Topi Pride and part of the Marsh Pride, groups that had once been under his direct control. Meanwhile, his brothers, Chongo, Kiok, Koshoki, and Kibogoyo, were taking a different path. More exploratory, more restless. They spent much of their time trying to expand, probing other territories, other opportunities. That left Doa more exposed, more vulnerable. The burden of maintaining his zone seemed to fall solely on him. And then, in late 2020, Halftail and Logol arrived. Two determined males, two intruders who came with the clear intention of taking what had once been Doa's territory. With no other option, Doa abandoned the area and rejoined his brothers. It was then that the 5 Bila Shaka, the survivors of a coalition that had once been 6, claimed a territory larger than ever. And with it came the real burden. They had under their influence and interest 4 major prides: Paradise, Mugaro, River, and Olulolo. 4 different fronts, 4 constant demands, and one single coalition to keep everything under control. During that period, the pressure began to show, especially in 3 of them, Kiok, Koshoki, and Kibogoyo. Their manes, once symbols of power, began to thin, a clear sign that something was wrong. Stress, constant vigilance, possible wounds or illnesses began to take their toll. That left only Chongo and Doa as the 2 males with their manes still intact. 2 dominant figures, at least in appearance. But that image didn't last long, because Doa disappeared. No one saw him fall. There was no recorded fight. He simply vanished while exploring the farthest parts of the territory. In the Masai Mara, that's how things happen. The rise can be fast and the fall silent. With the loss of 2 members, the Bila Shaka coalition was reduced to 4 males. And it was then that one of them, the biggest and possibly the strongest of all, took command. That lion was Chongo. Although he had already shown initiative, from that moment on, it was clear who set the direction of the group. Many believed Baba Yao or Dongo were the most dominant for being the oldest. And perhaps Baba Yao had a more impulsive and visible character, which generated that perception. However, for other observers, the real leader had always been Chongo. Calmer, more tactical, more consistent. The same Chongo who starred in a confrontation with Doa, captured on video. A fight with no clear winner. Both got what they wanted, to impose respect without needing to escalate into something worse. What stands out most about Chongo is not just his size or strength, but his intelligence. He's a lion who knows when to retreat and when to attack. On one occasion, when encountering a large coalition, he chose to trot away, wasting no time posturing. He understands that overconfidence can turn into a mistake. In another scene, he returned to the outskirts of the territory he once ruled, the Marsh Pride. Together with his brothers, he stole a kill from the lionesses, protected by Halftail and Logol. There was interaction, tension, but Chongo and his brothers prevailed. They ate, and they knew exactly what that meant, a blow to the pride of the local males. Chongo doesn't just react. He observes, measures, provokes if necessary, and then retreats. On another occasion, he followed Halftail for several meters. The other male avoided the confrontation, or maybe tried to lure him into a more favorable area. But Chongo didn't fall for it. He provoked and left. No unnecessary risks. He and his brothers have had multiple encounters with other lions. Some were brutal. They have injured and killed both males and females in those disputes over territory. Images that, due to platform policy, cannot be shown in this space. But if you want to know more, That material can be found on social media or through those who document these stories without restrictions. Chongo is an imposing lion. For some, the strongest in the Masai Mara, and for others, one of the most powerful lions on the entire continent in recent years. His estimated weight is around 220 kilograms, and he has shown that he not only knows how to defend himself, but also how to lead. However, he has a major disadvantage. He can only see with one eye, and that in combat makes a difference. He must anticipate more, move better, and always stay one step ahead to avoid being exposed. Despite that, he remains a formidable adversary. Hard to defeat when in shape. The greatest danger for him, as for many lions in the Masai Mara, is not natural rivals, but human presence. At times, outsiders enter the park with their livestock, and in the process, conflicts arise. In one of those recent episodes, Chongo appeared with a deep wound on his chest. It's not known exactly what caused it, but the intervention of local veterinarians allowed him to fully recover. If one day I were in danger and needed protection, I'd want to have Chongo by my side. Not because of his story, but because of what he represents: strength, leadership, and common sense. He may not be the most famous lion, but he is undoubtedly one of the best prepared to survive and lead. Surely you're wondering, how did Chongo lose the vision in one of his eyes? The truth is, no one knows for sure. Since he was young, the issue was already noticeable. Chongo simply grew up with that condition and learned to live with it. Despite that limitation, he has proven to be a natural leader, an intelligent warrior, and a lion who doesn't need compassion. He doesn't look for excuses, he looks for results. And up to the moment this video was made, Chongo and his brothers continue to dominate the territories of the Paradise and Rekero prides. An achievement that not many can claim in such a competitive and wild environment as the Mara. A coalition that began with 6, today still stands with 4. And as long as Chongo is with them, it will be hard for anyone to take them off the throne.